Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wandering Podcast, where we take advisement from outside the box. I'm Rihanna Ritter, your host. I'm an intuitive, sexuality, and authentic expression coach. Are you an accomplished professional who plays the part of having it all figured out? Who's strong for everyone else but feels lonely, misunderstood, like you can't tell anybody the truth about how stressed you are, how not passionate you are about your life and all that you've created? I guide my clients to deep, lasting fulfillment. I re-engage them with their bodies, their pleasure, their desire. I help them align to enjoy fulfillment and prosperity in all areas of their lives. Today, my guest is Dr. Carl Rothschild. He's the founder, researcher, and owner of Trifecta Light Technologies, Inc., the industry leader in the LED infrared light therapeutic heating light modality. Welcome, Dr. Carl. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about a subject or a variety of subjects that I've been involved with for 47 years. I love this.
Awesome. So your background was in chiropractic,
I started,
and I'm wondering how that blended, how you decided on that, how it blended with red light therapy and then sound too. I love that combination.
I started researching the idea of becoming a chiropractor right around 1972, I would say. And in 1972, I was in college, very good school, Stony Brook University out in Long Island, New York. And I was a biologist, but I also was very interested in healing, and I explored a lot of different possibilities. But I did my research. It wasn't so easy back then. We didn't have internet, computers, or any of that stuff. So I had a call. And I can tell you that in the months that I was calling, because I had been told about chiropractic, and I want to tell you, I was a bit of a hippie. My version. My version meant that I was more interested in getting people better and helping them than I was about money, which is, I don't mind making money, but it's still my focus is that as helping as many people as I possibly can was an important thing to me. So I would contact chiropractors all over the country, which again, back then, we didn't have cell phones. Calling long distance was a big pain in the ass, but we did it. And I never found a chiropractor that wasn't thrilled that they were a chiropractor. And I said, that's what I want. I want that in my life. If I was going to wake up in the morning to go to work, I wanted to be like looking forward to doing such a thing. And so I was in Brooklyn, New York. I moved all the ways out to California because at that time around Los Angeles was the best college in the world at that time. And came out here and I started my career out in Los Angeles. In 1978, I opened up my practice and I built a practice. In fact, I had several practices. I did very well. I enjoyed helping people, and it was happening with chiropractic. But then, about 26 years ago, I was introduced to red light therapy, and I couldn't believe it. There's this medical doctor that I knew before him getting involved with light therapy, and he hands me this thing that looks like a flashlight, and he says, I want you to use this on your patients. Just try it out. And, at that time, I was figuring, I was about 20 years into practice, and being the wise guy that I am, I figured, what is he talking about? I know everything. This is a bunch of hooey. I couldn't believe it, but he convinced me, let's at least try it. And we did. And within a month of the first us using it, it revolutionized my practice. I was able to heal things I never believed possible. And again, that's with equipment that's thousands of years weaker than what we currently have. But yet and still, we still had reasonably good results with that. This lady came in with gum disease. I'm a chiropractor. But one thing we knew about the lights is that it couldn't hurt. So I said, well, okay, let's try it out. And we did. We helped her with her gum disease. And this guy with his kidney problem. And this guy came in with a ripped Achilles tendon. It was 75% ripped. So it wasn't ruptured. The ends didn't separate completely, but he needed surgery. In fact, I sent him to the orthopedic surgeon that was going to do the surgery. And the surgery, we spoke to him on Monday. And by Saturday, he was destined to have that surgery. But I said, you know what, why don't you come in and we'll get the leg as strong as we can so you'll be ready for your surgery. And we treated him every day. And when he went in for the surgical review that Friday night or late in that Friday, he didn't need the surgery. I was like, okay, now I know that this is big. I mean, it was, and it was consistent. We were getting a lot of nice results back then. And over the years, things get stronger. That was a class 1 device. Then they came out with class 2, 3, and of course 4. And I stuck with that, using the best equipment possible. But then about 13 years ago, it was discovered that there was an element of light therapy that assisted with fat loss. Now, if you don't know this, everybody, there's almost nothing more popular than fat loss. People are willing to inject themselves with poison. They're willing to have things removed that shouldn't be removed. They'll do whatever is necessary to lose the fat because they can't figure out how to do it themselves. And I know how popular it is. And imagine having a light that can do this, that will not harm any tissue at all. It's not like freezing the fat, boiling the fat, lasering the fat. It's not radio frequency or ultrasonic cavitation. All of that is about bursting the fat cells, destroying the tissue. And yes, you'll lose some fat, but you're damaging or injuring or destroying essential tissue. That's not what a chiropractor is about. We're not about putting anything in the body that doesn't belong there and yanking anything out or destroying or injuring anything that does belong there. So when I'm telling you that we can use a light, and I'll go over the mechanism in a little while, but we can use a light to actually assist in a normal diet, not a highly restrictive diet. I mean, anyone's going to lose weight if they stop eating completely, but it's not possible for many people. It's not possible for me. I'm not going to totally stop eating. But if you can eat smart, which means it's calorically neutral, where you're going to eat the right amount of calories you need in a day, not more than you need, because obviously when you eat more than you need, it's going to be stored as fat. So we want to have you calorically neutral and try to stay away from the starchy carbohydrates, simple sugars, sodas, and alcohol. All of those are going to lead to problems with diet and weight loss. So if you're drinking alcohol and you're not losing weight, guess what? It can't work. I mean, a little bit of alcohol, I suppose, but the less, the better. So if you pair a smart diet with red light therapy, the results have been wonderful. So that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to get even more involved, and I started manufacturing, let's say 13 years ago, give or take. And we were involved with lasers and pads and panels and all the time treating parts of the body. And then COVID hit. And our practitioners wanted less physical contact between the patient and the provider. So we came up with a bed. In fact, the image, if people are watching this, they'll see what a bed looks like. And our first bed, which was years ago, was just to replace what we were doing up to that point. It was instead of the lasers, instead of the pads, because with the bed, you don't need staff. In fact, when someone says, well, what does it cost? I said, well, first of all, if you're using it for a business, you don't need to hire anybody for this. So you're saving thousands of dollars a month just for that reason. So the person can get in and out of the bed, as I do. I have a bed here in my home. I'm 72 years old, and I don't have a particular ailment, but I get in and out of that bed at least 3 times a week because I don't want to have ailments. I want to forestall the inevitable, right? And what I always taught my patients is about aging gracefully. I liken it to a candle that burns really bright from the beginning to the end, sputters out, and dies. And that's not what's happening for the most people in this country. The last 20 years of a person's life often is not so great. They're an invalid in some cases where they can't walk, they can't really provide for themselves, they can't wash themselves, they can't wipe themselves. I didn't want that in my life. So all we thought that this bed would be was a replacement for what we were making up to that point. It was going to be instead of the lasers, instead of the pads and panels and things like that, because it's so easy. Get in and out of bed, you don't need staff, blah, blah, blah. And so we started shipping these out so that with COVID, the person comes into the office, there's a lucite panel in front of you, so you're not having contact with the person. They get in and out of the bed themselves. They walk to the front desk. They go goodbye because they've already paid in advance and scheduled in advance. And so it worked out great. But what we didn't realize is that we were going to be getting results that we did not anticipate. And the reason why, and what we've learned, is when you bathe the whole body from head to toe, left and right, front and back, at the same time, that's when you're getting these amazing results. So what am I talking about? So Arnett calls up and he says, "Can you help me?" And I often start my lecture with this particular case. And for example, Arnett was having a heart attack once, if not twice a week, and it had been going on for over a dozen years. So by the time we met him, he was on his death. I mean, he was dying. He was dying. If you want to kill off a part of your body, restrict blood flow. Just put a tourniquet around it, and if you don't release that tourniquet, that arm's going to come off, the leg's going to die, whatever. And then with him, it was every organ, every gland, every tissue in his body was dying. His energy was gone, his clarity was gone. He had erectile dysfunction. He had everything you could think of that was not functioning right. So the practitioner calls me up and says, "Should I even treat this guy? I'm nervous about him having a heart attack in my office." And I said, "Why don't we?" And by the way, the reason why he could have these heart attacks and not completely die is that 12, 13 years ago, they had implanted a defibrillator in his chest. So that every time he died, it would zap him back to life.
Wow.
But I can tell
Wow.
you that he was struggling. He was suffering by the time we met him. And the practitioner said, "Should I even treat him?" I said, now normal treatment is 12 minutes. Let's just treat him for 5 minutes and stay in the room the whole time. That patient went home that night. That was almost 2 years ago. Hasn't had a heart attack since. He's had more treatment, no more heart attacks. And everything has come back to life. His energy, his blood pressure and pulse. He describes his energy. He says, "One thing I didn't expect is that my energy would be like through the roof." And his erectile dysfunction's gone. And he wasn't able to walk more than a few steps without losing his energy. I mean, he had no air. He could not manage. And now he's running. He he's back to normal life. What would you do? You know,
Wow.
if you don't, if an acupuncturist, chiropractor, whatever, what are you going to do for someone like that? And you know
Right.
what the answer is? I'm going to show you the mug that my staff made for me. Can you read that?
Get in the bed.
Now, it sounds like I'm a little wacky here, but that's my answer. It's so simple. You just get in the bed. You try it for 6 visits. Now, I'm not in practice. I'm not inviting you to my office, but we have offices all over the country. Try it for 6 visits, and that's it. That's 3 times a week for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 6th visit, if you don't see any change at all, I don't care what you got, then maybe it's not for you. And you know how often that happens? Not very often. It works. It absolutely works. And I'm going to go over the mechanism in just a little while. But I want to tell you about another story. This lady called me, I'm sorry, she emailed me about her severe Lyme disease and how it was destroying her life. As the word she used was, it ravaged her body. Every gland, every organ, every tissue in her body was suffering and struggling. So finally, she and I had a little struggle there getting our schedule together, but I eventually was able to interview her. And I had no idea. It wasn't just Lyme disease. So she starts off telling, she had 16 serious conditions, 16 serious conditions that she was taking drugs for, injections for, seeing doctors for every month. Her co-payments for all the drugs and all the injections. She had uveitis. Now, uveitis is sort of a precursor to glaucoma. She had so much pressure in one eye that it was dangerous. She had 180 pressure when it's supposed to be closer to 10 or 12 or something like that. So the treatment for that, because they had no real treatment for that, was drops, which her copayment for that, just that alone was $400 per month. Then the injections that she had in her eye once a month were $5,000. I don't know what the copay for that was, but I'm just telling you that was just the eye. Never mind all the other things. She had 3 forms of psoriasis. She had guttate psoriasis, plaque psoriasis, and psoriatic arthritis. She had one thing after another. She had kidney problems, liver problems, thyroid problems. Her heart was struggling and suffering. And when I interviewed her, it was like they're all gone. She doesn't have to spend her whole month going to doctors, getting injections, taking all these drugs. And so I'm not saying it works that way with everyone, although what I'm hearing is it works with that way with a lot of people, but the results are nothing short of spectacular. And I don't care what you've got, try it for 6 visits, and I would be surprised. I don't care if it's Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune disease. Like, so we had this guy, Joey, who had Charcot-Marie tooth disease, which meant he couldn't walk, and it meant that he was in pain every day for 15 years. And after 6 visits using the bed, he doesn't have that pain anymore. He's walking, treadmill, walking the dog for the first time ever because the dog wasn't more than 15 years old. So what I'm saying to you is that it was as big a miraculous finding to us as anybody. We had no idea. And again, when you bathe the whole body at the same time, that's when you're getting these outrageous results. So when somebody gets in the bed, they keep their eyes closed. They don't wear the goggles. They keep their eyes closed and they keep their mouth open. We want to get as much of this glorious, miraculous energy into their mouth as well. So somebody will say, well, is it dangerous to your eyes? In the 50 years that technology has been studied, there's never been a recorded side effect. You couldn't hurt somebody with this stuff if you tried. Can you imagine something that is so potent and yet has zero side effects? It's amazing.
Yeah.
And again,
I mean,
you don't have to believe me. There are two things I want you to do. Try it for 6 visits. We have offices all over the country. What you do is you go to our website, which is over here if you're watching, which is called trifectalight.com. You go to the website, go to the Contact Us page, and on the left side, it says find a location closest to you. Now, we can't post all the locations for privacy reasons, but we'll find the closest office to you and try it out. On the right side are for those of you that recognize that getting well, but also staying well for the rest of your life makes a lot of sense. I can't stop somebody from getting older, but I always educate people to try to do it more gracefully. Try to do it, have the highest quality of life that you can for as long as you can. And the bed should be an integral part. Of course, eating smart. Getting some exercise 3 times a week, very good also. But getting in the bed 3 times a week or more makes a lot of sense to integrate with your healing process, your wellness program for your home, for your business, or whatever. So on the right side is how you can buy it. If you have more money than health, you need something like this. If you're in a business, it's a magnet which will drive people to your facility like you can't believe, but also the ones that are already at your facility will sign up for this readily. I mean, we get people before the bed ever arrives, they'll have dozens of people who have signed up because they want to try it. And when someone's tried it for 6 visits, it is rare to see somebody who's not thrilled with their. It might be subtle, like if you have somebody that has outrageously advanced types of problems, it's not like 6 visits and they're done. But after 6 visits, everyone should see some change. And it's aesthetic change, so the skin will look better, crepe neck gone or faded, um, anything on the skin, advanced acne, psoriasis, eczema, all of those things respond beautifully to this full body red light bed. So, do you have any questions before? The next thing I'd want to do is go over how it works and why it works. But do you have any
that's the
questions?
question.
That's the key question.
Yeah.
All right, so I showed the bed to people, what it looks like. I talked about the website. There's a lot of information there. I recommend you get this book. It's called Illuminated Healing. I don't make a dime off of this. Any profit that comes from that goes to charity. But it's a well-written book, and you can get it in Audible form. You can get it as a Kindle, so you can read it online or on your computer, or you can get it as a book itself. And then the other thing I'd point out is the YouTube channel. My God, there's so much great information. So you go to YouTube and you put in Trifecta Light Official, one word, and you're going to see over 120 really nice videos. They're really well done. Some are interviews with me or other people, but there's a lot of key information that's in there. That's just wonderful. I'm also going to share a lot of information with you, videos and some other stuff that I'll send to you that you're welcome to share with your audience or not. So now let's talk about the mechanism that we're talking about here. There are two absolutely separate mechanisms. One, that thing I told you that they discovered around 13 something years ago, where red light has been shown to actually reduce fat, and why I got involved with manufacturing. So that's one mechanism. And then the other mechanism is completely different, but also, and it's the glorious mechanism. I'll talk about that later. So let's just talk about fat loss because it's kind of simple. When it first happened, when they 13 years ago, they discovered that something was different when they used an element of red light, and only red light, that it helped with fat loss. They thought it melted the fat or liquidated the fat. Well, they came up with all kinds of thoughts, but they didn't, until they did the research. And what the research proved is that what happens is the fat cell walls of the light of the cells that are affected by this light will actually become more porous temporarily. We're not destroying these things. We're not killing them in any way. So temporarily, we're going to change the permeability of the fat cell wall, allow the fat contents to leak out, and then with our unique protocol, we move the fat away from the fat cells and eventually to the liver for use or elimination. It's simple, and it works.
Mm.
But the beauty of integrating red and near infrared, so the red is all about fat loss and some healing, but the near infrared really helps with tightening the skin, all the healing aspects and all that, but tightening the skin, getting rid of sagging skin or stretch mark. So the combination together means that not only will the person lose fat, but they'll look better. They'll really look great. So that's fat loss. Now, I'm a healer, right? I started 47 something years ago about healing. And what they discovered on the other side, and they discovered this before the fat loss, was that there was an element of light that can actually stimulate healing in the person's body. And people have played with all kinds of colors and green and blue and all that, but we know, and I don't think we need to keep it as a secret, that it's not anything but near infrared. Now, what's unique about near infrared? First of all, it's invisible to the naked eye. So it's not really a color per se. And some of you have heard that word infrared, and there are just two kinds of infrareds. Far infrared, which is about heat, and nothing to do with what I'm going to describe to you. It's just a nice way of getting heat. Near infrared is what we used to call cold laser. It's about healing and about affecting the body, but not generating heat. Heat is the absolute enemy. What heat does is it dilates blood vessels, brings more fluid to the surface, and that would block the penetration of the light. So if you hear about saunas, like red light saunas or infrared saunas or anything like that, they're fine. But when you're talking about light therapy that I'm describing, which is the integration of red and near infrared, we don't want heat. Heat is not what we want. But if after you get in the bed and use that, and you then want to use heat or vibration or all that, that's fine. But when you get in the bed, we want a virgin body, so to speak, where it has not been stimulated in any way. But that's a whole nother story. So let's talk about the mechanism. How it does it? And you know what it's about? Sunlight. What they discovered is there are elements of sunlight that will stimulate the well-being in your body. But sun is subtle. It's not as strong as imagine with the bed. We can magnify this sunlight many, many times and then drive it deep into the person's body. And it's not about UV light. It's not about blue light, which screws up the circadian rhythm. It's just this glorious red and near infrared. And what they found is that that light will stimulate certain elements in your body called the mitochondria. It's in every cell of your body. Now, when I went to biology classes and all the time when I went to school, we learned that there was one mitochondria in every cell. And the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the body. It generates ATP, which is called the energy currency of your body. If you have the right amount of ATP, you can heal from almost anything. If you have the right amount of ATP, you can function, you can have energy, you can have clarity, you can do all kinds of things. And that's why it's so global. It's going to affect every tissue in your body because every part of your body is made up of tissues. Every tissue is made up of cells, and every cell has this mitochondria. And if we can stimulate the mitochondria to come back to life and do its job and get the right amount of ATP in your body, not more than it needs, but certainly not less than it needs, then you'll function really great. Let me tell you, what chiropractic is about. It's about removing the interference and then let the innate intelligence do its thing. If you or I, anybody out there thinks we're smarter than the body is, then you're stupid. The body knows what it's doing, but it needs you to help. If someone has an arrow in their shoulder, let's get the arrow out, patch it up, and let the body heal from that. If somebody has any issues, like with chiropractic, it's about removing the interference of the spine, amongst other things. It's all about enhancing and accelerating, even vaccinations, and that's a whole nother term. But even a vaccination, if it's the right kind of vaccination, it's about stimulating your own body to fight against an oncoming virus or bacteria or whatever. So that's what healing is all about. And what we're able to do is to stimulate the mitochondria to come back to life so that your body will know what to do at that point. Now, what I didn't tell you is that there is an element that they discovered beyond the mitochondria that's in the mitochondrial wall called cytochrome C oxidase. This is the enzyme that is actually a chromophore, which means that it's stimulated by sunlight. Not the mitochondria stimulated. It's the cytochrome C oxidase, which gets stimulated by the lights that we have that will then stimulate the mitochondria to come back to health. So in a nutshell, you need sunlight. Absent sunlight, you certainly need our red light bed, even more so, because we can mimic some elements of sunlight, magnify it many times, and drive it into your body. And the essence is here is that you want full body at the same time, front and back, top and bottom, left and right, inside and out, at the same time to get these amazing results. I don't have an objection to a mask. I don't have an objection to a helmet. They're fine. They're toys. They're pleasant. But if you want the miracles, and I know it's not a very scientific term, and somebody who's a scientist will say, how silly. And I feel silly at times, but I don't know how else to describe it. I don't have the words to describe the kind of things that we're seeing, the kind of results that we're hearing about. It's miraculous. So what else? I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's miraculous, and I recommend that you try it out. Go to the website, trifectalight.com, and try it out. Why did we call it the trifecta? It was the triple effect of face, fat, and healing. That was the original thought. But it turns out there's a lot more than just face, fat, and healing. In fact, with the face, that had to do with skin. What we learned when we use the bed, we're getting skin results from head to toe. So it's skin, fat, and healing. But what we also learned is it's about men's health, women's health. It's about emotional and psychological issues also. The light can penetrate the skull and get to the brain. And oh my God, I had a lady that she wrote me, if this is how normal people feel every day, I can't believe I've been missing out all this time. What she was talking about was she was highly depressed. She hated her life. And after 2 weeks of using red light therapy, she's not that way anymore. She feels great. Now, it doesn't mean she doesn't have issues. She doesn't have problems, but she can be more neutral and not overreact. And so we're seeing people with seasonal blues during the winter, which I'm in California, we don't get a lot of that here. But in some states throughout the country, they use the light to ward off seasonal blues or any kind of blues. So
So it's
with
kind of
that said,
balancing hormones and keeping the endocrine system.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's much more to it, where we'll see nitric oxide be increased, which is all about circulation. We'll see a lot of other things, but it emanates all from mitochondria coming back to life and doing its thing, generating that ATP, generating the energy that you need to do anything in your life, including healing.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you heard of methylene blue?
Of course.
Can you talk about that a little bit, like how that and light work together? And
So I've interviewed and worked with people high end and who've used a lot of methylene blue. And I'm not going to tell you that I'm a methylene blue expert. So I'm not going to go over the mechanism, but we've heard great things when you combine red light therapy and methylene blue. Am I crazy about methylene blue? It seems to work. I got to tell you a story. So it was introduced to me before probably anybody much knew about it, because I get that, because I've been doing this so long. And the guy he told me to take it through some amount of drops and swish it in your mouth and then swallow it. what he told me. And so now I'm about to do a podcast with somebody, or somehow it's going to be online. And I look at my teeth and they're bright blue, and my
Yeah.
tongue is bright blue. Well, I learned that that was not the way to take methylene blue. That's one thing I want to tell you. That's not how you take it. Don't swish it in your mouth. When I was in school, we used methylene blue to stain cells. It gives you the right contrast, so you'll be able to see a cell or see tissues much better. But
I
then,
forgot about that.
but then they started using methylene blue in the world of healing. I don't have any objection to it, but I don't know enough about it other than that I've heard very nice things about using it in conjunction with red light therapy. But I'm going to tell you something. Just use red light therapy in the beginning. When people combine so many different things, we have a facility, a very famous athletic facility in Florida, and they do everything with each one of they get cold plunge, and they have hyperbaric, and they have oxygen, and they have all these things. So when the person's said and done, they don't know what helped them or what doesn't help them, whatever. And I tell them, look, don't do that. Just try red light therapy by itself. Don't add a million other things to it. Just do that, and you'll see some amazing things. Then after you recognize how it can affect you so wonderfully, you want to add other things, okay, I don't have an objection to that. I'm not saying don't eat right. I'm not saying don't exercise. Those are the essential things. But incorporating red light therapy in your life, look, I could do a million things. I've had 12 practices. I've done all this stuff, but red light has really changed, taken my life to a whole nother level and helped me to do something that I was a hippie again. I told you when I started in chiropractic in the 70s, and I wanted to help people and not focus on money. But what I get more than now than ever before is this phrase or some variation of this, which is thank you for giving me my life back. Why do you think I got involved with chiropractic in the first place? And natural healing and helping people. It's not that we're against surgery and drugs. We're not. It's about maybe not using that as a first resort. Maybe don't go straight to surgery or straight to drugs. Why don't we try the natural way and incorporating red light therapy and see if that'll work? Thank God there's surgery. Thank God there's drugs, because when it doesn't work, where else are you going to go? So when this guy who had Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, which is a weird disease that is going to guarantee this guy permanent blindness. But by the time we met him, he was not blind completely. He had lost some of his eyesight. And they don't have an answer for that. There's nobody had an answer for that. They would use some drugs to keep the pain down to a minimum because he would get such bad migraines and other headaches as well, and other symptoms, and he couldn't sleep, and blah, blah, blah. And he started using red light therapy, and that changed everything. So the blindness he already lost, he's not regaining that. But you know how thrilled he is? He was surrendering to the fact he was going to be totally blind, and now he's not. So it's a thrill to me, but it's probably a much bigger thrill to him to know this, to hear that, to see that. And you would be hard pressed to find almost any condition that we haven't seen beautiful results. We had this guy we talked about Lyme disease. This guy contracted Lyme disease when he was 12 years old. It ruined his childhood. It ruined his education. It ruined his social life. And of course, he had no career. He just was working at jobs, but it wasn't a career. And he didn't really love his life. I'll put it like that. I don't want to say he hated his life, but he was not thrilled. And he gets in one of our beds out there in the East Coast somewhere. And I'm going to send you these videos, and I recommend if anyone wants to know more, if you could send these out to people. But his name is Steve, and I'm not going to tell you anymore, but it will definitely, for someone like myself that loves healing people and helping people, I get goosebumps, or I had gotten goosebumps when I heard the video. I interviewed him, and when he started telling me the things he told me, it was amazing. So rather than me go into details, I want you guys to watch that video. I want you to watch the video with Jessica, who had the 16 things. I want you to watch the video on Arnett, who's having heart attacks every other, once a week. And just all these different videos and recordings for people who've had all these different issues. And check it out and see. I mean, you have no excuse if you don't at least try it. At least try it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's near you and it's accessible, it, it's certainly not going to harm you. Give it a try. You're already getting red light from the sun, but this takes, you don't have the ultraviolet. Um, I've never seen a bed though. It's pretty exciting that there is a bed and that you can do the whole body at once. I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense,
And what you
because
want to
we know
look
when we're
for,
trying to.
you want to look for is make sure that the lights don't get hot. So there's cheap junk that's coming in from China, and they do these knockoff pieces of equipment that's using junk, and that's why they can charge $1.50 for something that is ridiculous. But what you want to look for are lights that don't get hot. You want to look for the ability to customize a treatment so someone who's 400 pounds gets a unique treatment different from a 80 pounder. So a 400 pounder has all this flesh, and they're able to absorb this energy without getting hot. But this person who's 80 pounds has almost no flesh. They'll have some issues with that. So we can customize the treatment for them. Also, we have the capability of pulsing the wave. And maybe you've heard of healing frequencies or resonating frequencies, pulsing energy. When you do
Yeah.
that, different tissues of your body resonate with different frequencies. And we're able to create that resonating. I don't even know if there is a word resonation, but there's ability to resonate um, with our lights and different tissues of the body. So we can pulse the wave, we can have lights that don't get hot, we can have head to toe, you know, coverage. And there are many other factors that we have that if you have questions about it, when you go to the website, trifectalight.com, go to the contact us page and just go to the contact us and say, get this to Dr. Rothschild, and they will forward this to me where I'll go over any questions you might have specifically, how it might work for you. But one of the things you said was, something to the fact that if we have a bed in your area, now, if we don't have a bed in your area, then it is I'm joking here, it is your obligation to find a health practitioner in the area to get a bed in there because they will be thrilled with you, but their patients will be thrilled with them. And when I say patients, remember this light is so safe, you couldn't hurt somebody with it if you tried. You don't have to be a high-end health practitioner. You just need to know something about the body. So the whole fitness industry, the whole healing, yes, healing industry, but also weight loss, um, athletic, day spas, med spas, and all that, they all love this type of technology in their facility. And more people are going to be demanding it. So you want to have this in your office. And again, remember, we include the whole package, which includes business in a box. So we're going to make sure you're unbelievably successful. We're not going to give you a chance not to be unbelievably successful with this. It doesn't work to our advantage if you're not successful.
Can people have these in their homes?
Absolutely. When people recognize how expensive it is to be sick, people don't, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but the reason why people don't take care of themselves as much as they should is because they're not scared enough. Their 30-year-old self is not taking into consideration what their 75-year-old self is going to be thinking. Because at 30, they didn't take care of themselves. And they go, I can get away with whatever. No, you're not. Whatever you're doing now, you're investing for your future. Doesn't mean you never can have fun. Yes, you can have fun, but be smart about it. Don't abuse your body. So that when you're 75 years old, are you going to be vibrant and being able to get in a car and drive somewhere and be able to communicate and all that? You know how many people, when they reach a certain age, much too young in this country, where they're not vibrant and they're in a senior living center that someone has to bathe them, and I don't want that for myself. So I do the best I can to take care of myself. I mentioned already that I'm 72 years old. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just telling you that I'm doing my best to age as gracefully as I can. And I recommend the same thing for everybody else.
Yeah, and some of the contributing factors are that the way we eat is messed up. We eat a lot of manufactured foods that are
Yeah, yeah, you
full
want to do
of
the best you can with that for
not
sure.
real Yeah, not nutritious ingredients, plus not resting, hustling, overstressing, um, thinking about like we take our lives so seriously as humans. Like, we're like one planet in an entire in a galaxy, in multiple galaxies, and we think that the little things we're doing here all day are so important and life or death. And um, I mean, a lot of us could ease up a little on how serious we are about, because the stress is what causes so much of the illness. It's so much
Absolutely.
of the not resting, so much of the not eating well, because we're
You
not
know what?
willing to take the time to take care of ourselves.
The truth is, the word stress is the cause of all illnesses because you're talking about emotional stress, but there's physical stress, there's chemical stress. That's what we learned in natural healing is to remove as much stress as we can, not just the emotional stress. You can have somebody that's emotionally great. They're not, that things don't bother them, but they don't do all the other stuff. So they have other stressors, including their environment, including chemicals, meaning what they're eating, including physical, meaning what they're not exercising or the wrong exercise, all that. Stress is the key word in the whole thing. And you want to do everything you can to reduce as much possible. There are people that have stress because about the fact that they have stress. They stress out
Yeah.
because they don't know how to relax. And so they get even
Yeah.
more stressed from it. Just do the best you can. And if you can't relax, and there are people like that, unfortunately, what they do is they find their ways to medicating themselves, self-medicating themselves. And that's a whole nother problem. So if you can try to do this, and as you say, don't take life so seriously. I'm a jokester from New York, Brooklyn boy. We're wise guys. But I like to find humor in any way and in every way I can, not to be ridiculous about it and to find joy in life. And that's what you're right, absolutely. Anyhow, so I
Yeah.
recommend trying red light therapy in your life and see if it makes a difference.
Yeah, I love it. And sometimes, I mean, just finding the bed and laying in it, like being bathed in light, imagine how relaxing that must be.
Oh yeah, well, it's also only 12 minutes, but most people do fall asleep. Again, it's not hot. It's going to be comfortably warm, so it's not uncomfortable at all.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I've heard some rumors circulating around social media. I haven't seen it myself, but that people are saying that red light therapy is somehow dangerous now. Have you heard any of that?
In the 50 years this technology has been studied, there's never been a recorded side effect. So you think I take it seriously when somebody, listen, why would somebody say the wrong thing? It's because they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that they don't lose out. If everybody got in this bed 3 times a week for the rest of their life, I'm going to tell you something that's probably going to get me in trouble, but the amount of drugs needed, the amount of surgeries needed, and the amount of hospital stays needed are going to drop significantly. It's just a
Yeah.
fact. So do you
Yeah.
think those people might say, maybe red light's really dangerous? Are you crazy? Not only is it not dangerous, if now there might be crappy piece of equipment that could cause problems. One of the things is
Yeah.
that a really junky device generates a lot of high-end, high-frequency EMF. And this is the reason that type of frequency EMF is why people don't want to live around these power cable towers, the electrical towers that they have. And they found that around that area, a radius around those towers, the amount of cancer had grown significantly from there. So what we want to make sure is that when you get in a bed, that the amount of EMF is is negligible, as with our bed. That's not true of every bed out there. So maybe that's what they're thinking of. I don't know, but it's a silly comment uh, when they don't have facts behind them, and I have the facts. By the way, one thing I didn't tell you guys: go to Google Scholar. If you're not familiar with Google Scholar, it's scholar.google.com. Go to Google Scholar and put in the phrase red light therapy. And you'll see over millions of entries there of double-blind studies, research papers, articles, all kinds of stuff about it. And you're going to find tons of stuff in there, positive stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, we do have an industry that wants to keep us sick. We're, I think, well aware of that. So
Absolutely.
any kind of natural remedies that are highly effective become a threat to the profit of that industry, and they will do what they can to maintain their market share. Right?
Absolutely.
That's what businesses do. Um,
All right. So do you have any questions for me?
Not really. I'm excited to watch some of the videos on YouTube to get more familiar with how it all works and
But
the
I'm also
book.
going to send you some stuff as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
send me your address so I can get you a copy of my book. And
okay.
I wish everybody well. I hope that you take advantage of the possibility of trying the bed out for 6 times. I recommend that.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll have the links and contact information in the show notes
All
so
right.
people can find a bed near them and give it a shot. Thank you
Okay.
so much for being here.
You're welcome. Take care.